Good afternoon, welcome to the Churchyard at Sunderland Minster. It's a chilly September day and I just thought on my lunch break I'd have a look at a little part of the churchyard. There isn't a great deal of headstones. Most were taken down to make it into a garden. I will let this church off compared to some of the others because a lot were lost because of the extensions to the church. If you look at the size of it, with it now being a minster, it's not anywhere near the original size it used to be, so a lot of the headstones that were close to the church were taken down and placed in the pavement. Obviously, like in the other churchyards, a lot disappeared, but just having in this corner, there's a couple of old headstones that have been placed against the wall. There has been a lot of renovation work done on this area over the last few years. As you can see across there, that's towards the historic Bishopwearmouth village green. So Bishopwearmouth originally was just a village with a green over there. Gradually it expanded eastwards to what is like Sunderland city centre now. So there's a lot of history around here. Just a couple of headstones here. This one has got beautiful lettering. Sacred to the memory of Sarah Taylorson Ranson, daughter of John and Sarah Ranson, Bishopwearmouth, who departed this life. Now, from memory, this was around 1820s when she was buried there. John was a local businessman. I think at various different things. It was Stages Brewery down in the East End. And there's another one here for John Wright of Bishopwearmouth, gentleman who died 10th of January 1834, aged 80 years, and of Mary Wright, his widow, who died 1st of October. (1854). So she must have been a good age, and if he was 80 in 1834. And there's the bottom half of that same headstone. This is for Frances Wright, their daughter and first child, who died 14th of September 1811, aged, I think that's 12 years. If he died in 1834, aged 80, 23, he must have become a father when he was in his 50s. I'll have to have a check on that. But as you can see, just in these bushes, there's a couple of more. That one is for members of the Allison family, and mentions Thomas Allison, mariner, son of the above. With Sunderland being a coastal place, a hell of a lot of the population were involved in not just shipbuilding, but mariners, sailors went across the world. Many never come back. Just have a look at these two over here. Randomly, these two have been left standing. That got a lovely ornate vase or urn on there, and that's in memory of Alice, wife of George Shields, who died October the 4th, 1820, aged 41 years. And then this one, which looks a lot more late, looks like it's been put up a later date. Yeah, I think this was added much later in history, because look, died July the 20th, 1786, Robert Goodchild of Ryhope, aged so many years. I think that's one of these probably put up later in the 1800s to remember members of the Goodchild family. The church originates from around the 900s, and it's right next to Low Row, which just goes along before. If you look, the church is quite high up compared to the surrounding land. That's because over the centuries it's been built up with burials, soil, just to make the graveyard even bigger. Now, some of the headstones that were taken down were placed on the pavement. So, as an example, the family burial place of William Welburn. So that would have stood up in the churchyard. But some of these these monuments would have been inside, because going back say the 15, 16, 1700s, a lot of the well-to-do people were actually buried within the church itself. Now, because it's been raining, this has actually made some of the stones brilliant to read and clear. So near this place lies interred the remains of, I think it's William Hunter of Sunderland. So when we go back to this era, Sunderland was a separate parish which was down towards the docks and the old East End. People of Sunderland didn't have their own church until 1719, so they had to be buried up here until Holy Trinity was built. So the names got their names: James Byrne. And these are really old here. Hannah, wife of Ellis Vireyard of Sund, Gent, daughter of William Eyre of Box in the county of Wilts, Esquire, aged something years, lies here, December something 28th, Anno Domini 1716, so that's over 300 years. So there's quite a few there. Just take a couple of them more. That's one for the Preston. Remember the Preston family? They were a big family involved in the slate business. They originated over in Westmoreland. They're William Preston, slate merchant, late of Leeds. One of them became a mayor. When it snows, all the lettering actually gets filled in, so you get a much better impression of some of the words. So there's another example. Mentions the burial ground of that particular person. It's a shame most of them were taken down because so much history was lost. As you can actually see, the graveyard goes around the side, so if you've taken off all this exterior from when the church was modernised, it's actually quite a decent sized graveyard. So obviously there's tens of thousands of people buried here over the centuries. Eventually it was decided to build an extension which was just behind that travel lodge in Hind Street, which opened in 1806. It only ever held a couple of hundred burials. I think it might have been the fact that the stream was close by. It was quite boggy and it was a bit of a dump. But the Duke of Wellington's brother was the rector of this particular parish, and in 1839 he gave some land to the parish to be used as a new cemetery, which was the Rector's Gill or Gill Cemetery. It has different names. I call it the Gill Cemetery because that tends to be what was used the most. Over in the distance, they're actually currently doing some work on the site of the cemetery, so it wasn't that far from the actual churchyard. It's probably one of the reasons why it was donated, because it was a ravine, it couldn't really be used for much, and it was still close to the church. So that opened in 1839 in October and effectively shut in, I think it was about May, June 1856 when Bishopwearmouth opened. So at one point this parish church had 3 burial grounds. It had this, Hind Street over there, and the Rector's Gill Cemetery. There was also that building across there, the white one, that is used to be the National School Cemetery, and there were some vaults where several dozen people were were buried under around 1823 to 1840. So this churchyard, even though it effectively closed in October 1849, some people were still buried there for a while, and that was if you had like an existing plot with vault space in the churchyard. So if a husband might be buried with his deceased wife and so on, but effectively after that point there wasn't that many, and then it pretty much stopped. So it wouldn't have been too far for a funeral at this church to go over there, but even at that time, some people had funerals at home, some people had funerals in the street outside the house, some had them in the cemetery chapel, because after about 10 years of it being open, there was a cemetery chapel built in the Gill Cemetery, which was being used to hold funerals. Other people just had a funeral outside the vaults, which were over at the Gill Cemetery. So just have a walk around. I will look at the graves around the corner on another occasion, because there's quite a few. There's more stood up around that. But for some reason, that section, there's probably about 15 graves were left standing. But there is also lots of headstones in the path. Again, some you can read, most you can't. But I'll just give you one last shot of where we are. As you can see, we've got the old and the new. We've got the city centre tower blocks, and you can just see a bit of the Crowtree Leisure Centre, the old building, still standing on that particular side. So I will leave you with that. So thank you very much.